Hi guys, it's Jeanet and welcome back to my channel. Also, if you're new here, I post new videos every week. So once in a blue moon, I decide to make a writing video, especially when I feel like I actually have something to say about my writing life, and today is one of those days. I decided to discuss the first editing stage when it comes to editing your novel, and the reason why I decided to talk about this is because that is in fact the editing stage that I am currently busy with myself. So today I thought I'd discuss how I came upon my method of editing, why I decided to do it the way that I am doing it, and kind of what goes into that method of editing. So for those of you who haven't seen my NaNoWriMo video, I'll link it here. But basically I finished the first draft of my novel in January, and as per many people's recommendation, I decided to take off the entirety of February to kind of give myself some distance from my own work and allow myself to then look at it with new eyes once I start with the editing phase. So I have to admit, I think it was a great suggestion for me to take that time away from my novel. I feel like I'm a lot more brutal with myself now than I would have been if I had only waited a week or even started editing immediately after finishing it. So I do think this is a good recommendation, but I would also advise that you try and find something else that is writing related that you can do in the month that you are taking away from your novel. And for me, I decided to work on my world building every day of February so that when it came time for starting my editing in March, the transition wouldn't be as jarring because I would still be used to dedicating some of my time each day to my novel. Even though it is technically not writing or even editing, it still was something and I still remained in that habit. Anyway, so I did some research beforehand because I wanted to make sure that I got as much out of my editing as possible. I'll link the 3 main videos that I looked at down below, but after some consideration, I ended up deciding to use Jenna Moressi's editing style as the starting point for my own, though it kind of spiraled into its own thing in the process. So with Jenna Moressi's video, she suggests that you first tackle the big plot and scene discrepancies. So you make any edits that are major changes or that have scenes that you need to remove or that you need to add. And then she also adds that while you're doing that, as you're reading through, you highlight the smaller things that you notice that need to be changed in a color-coded fashion. To be fair, I did end up following some of those suggestions, but instead of tackling my large plot points that needed changing and scenes that needed to be added or taken away first, I decided to take my documents into Google Docs and basically handle my manuscript the same way that I handle other people's manuscripts when I beta read for them. I came up with this color coding system for my highlighting, where yellow is words or sentences that need to be reworded, blue is sentences or paragraphs that need to be condensed, green is overused words or phrasing, especially when referring to words that appear multiple times in rapid succession. Purple indicates descriptions that need to be added since I'm a terrible underwriter. And red is when I use the wrong tense, which happened quite a lot in the beginning of the novel when I was still deciding on whether or not to write my story in present tense or past tense. And gray is for words or phrases that I feel are passive rather than active. Going quickly back to Google Docs, what I like so much about using that is, like with the PDFs, you can actually comment on things within the document, and I found it really helpful to be able to leave notes in the document so that I had all my thoughts together and wouldn't accidentally forget why I had highlighted a specific thing that didn't necessarily fit into all the color coordinated issues. Anyway, I quickly want to discuss why I decided against first doing the major changes, and that is because even though I had a general idea of what I wanted to add in, I quickly became aware of the fact that I wasn't as familiar with my own timeline as I needed to be in order to know where to make these changes. So that's kind of where the second half of my first phase of editing came into play, and that is with scene outlines. So scene outlines is generally something that is used in script writing, but I do think that it could be appropriately used for novel writing as well. So if you're not someone who's known as a pantser in the writing community, so someone who generally kind of makes things up as they go along, then you most likely have a basic outline of your novel. And though these basic outlines can be very handy with guiding the major plot points of a story, you do usually tend to leave out the smaller scenes that occur within the novel, the type of scenes that you know that they're, but you kind of forget about them until you read them again. And that's kind of where I found myself at and why I felt I needed a scene outline. So I basically ended up numbering every scene in my manuscript and then creating a entirely new document in my screenwriting program in order to organize these. And in that document I literally just wrote, for example, chapter 6, scene 2, followed by a summary of what happened in said scene. That way, instead of having to scroll through my entire manuscript to figure out where I want to insert certain scenes, I just look at my scene breakdown, jump to the approximate area of where I think I should insert my scene, and double check that it flows well with the rest of the scene surrounding it, and then boom. So yeah, I basically just didn't want to have to rewrite the same scene 10 times over because I kept on changing where in the book it took place. Now obviously at the end of all of this, I'm not saying that you have to edit your manuscript the same way that I'm currently editing mine, but I did want to put another option out there, and I watched quite a few other editing videos and I haven't really seen mention of the scene outline, which is why I thought it relevant to bring into this video. And I also kind of just wanted to show you guys that it's okay to take inspiration from someone else's editing method and tweak it to suit your own needs. Which is also why I decided to leave the 3 major videos that I used and found helpful down below, because even though the other 2 videos that I link below isn't the type of editing that works for me, it might be the type of editing that you need and that works for you. I'll also be leaving a link to the Celtex program in the description box below if you also want to use that to create a scene outline for your first edit, or even maybe while you are still writing your first draft. And with all of that out of the way, I do hope you found this video helpful or at least informative, and that it maybe gave you something to think about. If you did, please consider liking and subscribing. I would really appreciate it. My Patreon, social media and other relevant links will be in the description box below if you want to check them out. And otherwise, I hope you guys have an amazing day, and I'll see you guys again next time. Bye! Because I'm kind of still getting into my work schedule for my new job, I found myself a bit overwhelmed this month, so I decided to kind of just do 3 videos that I found fun this month. The first one was this editing video that you just watched, and next week's one will be a Barbie related video. Now I'm sure you guys are like, why do we need a Barbie related video? But I guess you'll just have to wait and see.